everyone, and welcome to the very first author interview for the month of July. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is an author making their second appearance here on the show. Now, if you remember this guest, she was part of my first ever Authors Roundtable back in June. It was so successful that she is coming back for part 2, which will be later this month. But before we get into the roundtable, in this episode, we're going to dive deep into our guest. And who is our guest, you may be asking? Well, she is a longtime writer and author, probably the most published author you've never heard of. She has over 50 books available across a wide variety of romance genres and tropes. In addition to her addiction to writing, she's a retired middle school teacher, science nerd, and a chronic illness warrior. Living in Arizona with her husband and service dog, she is always on the lookout for a new character or story idea. Inspiration comes out of nowhere sometimes. While slightly introverted, she loves talking with other readers and writers. And for her, every conversation is a new adventure. So, without further ado, let us give a huge round of applause to our guest today, Maxine. Maxine, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Maxine. I am so excited to have you here on the show in your very own author interview to discuss the plethora of books that you've written. And I'm not joking, viewers and listeners. When I say that she has published 50 books, she has published 50 books. Now, Maxine, I know you recently, not too long ago, published your most recent story, but I also know you brought with you a couple of your previous published works. Would you like to share with the viewers and listeners?
Sure. Like we've said, I have a lot of different romances across the genre and tropes. So I have a little bit for everybody. But today I have brought one of my more popular books, which is my shifter romance. This is Motorcycles and Moonlight. It's a wonderful little shifter romance. It is this can be read as a standalone, but there is a companion novel that picks up right where this leaves off. And then there are a few other books that follow the same characters through time. So if you're interested in like series, this one's great, or you can just read it alone. That's fine too. I also have several rockstar romances, but I brought with me today Fly Over the Blood Moon. This is a great book if you love a strong, snarky female lead character, because this is about a rock band and its lead singer who's kind of falling out of favor with the band and having just a lot of struggles. And so they bring in a fixer to get his booty back online. And she is a take no crap kind of girl. And so that's their story. And then I do have another. This is a standalone, but there is this one. This is The Thorns of Briar Rose, and this follows another character that's in the band and how he finds his significant other. She is not quite as feisty. She's a little younger. There's a slight age gap in this one, but she is a full-figured kind of gal who's kind of felt the sting of other guys, and he has to kind of work a little bit harder to get her attention and to keep her attention, which he's not used to, of course. So this is The Thorns of Briar Rose. And then the last book I brought with us is, it's actually a standalone, but it's in part of my saga, my fast saga. This is called Promise or Threat. And this is a great book if you like a lot of spice. It's got a lot of spice in it. It's got a little kink in it. There is an age gap with this one. It follows, the characters are street racers, but the lead character here, Sky, is also got some secrets and is part of the mafia life. And So this is a very spicy book. It is also a very big book. But like I said, this is a great standalone if you like that kind of thing. This series that this is a part of, or the saga this is a part of, I tagline as The Fast and the Furious meets mafia romance. So, and there
Ooh.
are a bunch of, there's a set of 6 books that deal with the 2 main characters, and then each of their like side characters got their own book. So
Nice.
those are just a few of mine.
Awesome. Awesome, Maxine. And also, as said before, you also recently published your next book, which came out in June. And without spoiling too much, what can readers expect from this newest work of yours?
The latest book is called The Killer and the Coyote, and it does have a little bit of a mafia undertone to it. It is a shifter romance. She, the lead character in that, Valentina, thought she wanted to be part of her family's legacy in life. And when that kind of turns on her, she has to figure things out. And that leads her to a lot different kind of life and walks her into a bar in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, things progress from there. So.
Ooh, I like it. I like it, Maxine. So you've had quite the career as an author. I mean, to get like 50 books out, I mean, that is an incredible, incredible milestone. And I have no doubt you have no plans on stopping anytime soon. So now let's go back in time a little bit to the very, very beginning. What sort of sparked this creative interest? So going back to your bio again, you were a retired teacher before, and I'm curious, is it when you were a teacher, or maybe when you just retired, that you started pursuing the written word, or was that passion for writing always with you growing up, but you rediscovered it later in life?
So I started writing. I wrote my first novel when I was in high school. And I needed an escape, as preteens, early adolescents, life gets a little bit bogged down and there's a lot going on and we all know how to deal with it. And I read a book, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And, I read that she was a teenager when she wrote that. And I was like, wow, that's cool. I wonder if I could, deal with this. And then so I sat down and I was just trying to like vent some of the drama and stuff that was going on in my life. And I wrote a basically a fiction book, but it was, had a lot of the stuff I was dealing with in high school. And I realized that just really was a great outlet for me. It was a great creative way for me to, get all this stuff that I was dealing with out. And so that's kind of where it started. I never ever thought I would publish. Never ever thought I would do anything but write for me. And I wrote several books after that. As characters would kind of pop into my head, I would write their story. And the second book is actually my first published book, published many years after I wrote it. And it was the hero that I needed at the time. And so it just, the more I wrote, the more characters started coming to me and the more I had to write to keep sane. So I wrote all the way through raising my family and teaching and everything, not even considering that I would publish.
Ooh, nice. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Well, this kind of goes into a fan question, which is an early one, because I get a lot of fan questions from my viewers and followers on my YouTube channel as well as my website. And this particular follower sent me this question. And this may be a very tough question for you to answer, Maxine.
Okay.
This viewer would like to know, of your 50 books,
Okay.
which one, and this is a multi-step question, A, the one you're most known for, B, the one you're most proud of, and C, the one you would like to redo if you had the chance?
Oh my goodness. The one that I'm probably most known for is Motorcycles and Moonlight. People seem to love their shifter romances, and that's a great one. So that's probably the one that everybody, goes towards and would probably know me from. The one I'm most proud of goes back to my Fast series. I absolutely love the 6-book set of Aces Wild and the whole progress, the Wrong Things Right, Right Things Wrong trilogy.
Mhm.
There's a lot in it, and there's a lot to dissect from it. But I wrote that at a very challenging time in my life, and it helped me really process through some of the things I was dealing with. And I'm very proud of how that one actually worked out, how the characters grew, how the main character specifically, how she grew and she came into her own power and things like that. As for the last one, which one would I redo? Oh, I have several that I wish I could go back and redo. Not because I'm, ashamed of the story or anything. Most of my books need a little bit of a re-edit at some point. But there's a few that, each one was written at a very specific time in my life, and whatever I was dealing with or whatever the characters were having me work through at that time. But looking back on a few of them now, I'm like, don't really, that one doesn't fit anymore. So probably, I would say Lost Truth is one. There's another one called Tides of Soul that I would probably like to go back and maybe rework a little bit, maybe look at those characters a little bit more and figure out, what happened to them now versus what was going on with them then.
All right, all right. And kind of another fun little question, Maxine. Are you more of a pantser or planner?
Oh, I am 100% pantser. I have no idea what's happening in my books. Like I said, my characters walk in and sit down and they just gap at me until I write their story. So I have no clue where we're going at all. At some point in every single one of my books, I was writing and I thought we were headed in one direction, and then, left turn. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm 100% pantser.
All righty, all righty. I like it. I like it. And here's another really good question, and also kind of a semi-reflective question. For all the books you have written in your career thus far, ultimately, what is the goal you have for each of them? And also the promise you're making of not just to yourself as the author, but also fans of the romance genre and possibly fans of the subgenres.
Um, this is going to sound awful, and I really don't mean this badly, but when I write a book, I write it for me. So I am just trying to keep my sanity as these characters are talking to me. I never plan to publish anything that I write. Once it's done, once I finished with it, once it's sat and marinated and I've looked back on it, if I kind of like it, I may let a few other people read it. And if they say go for it, I do. But publishing was never my goal. So for my readers, I just hope that they find a book that they like, that they can relate to, that they kind of understand what's happening, and that they'll forgive me for anything in it that they don't like. But I just I write for me, and I just hope somebody else likes it. So
That's fair. That's fair. That seems to be the case for a lot of authors, that we write our books for ourselves because, we're passionate about the story. We love the characters and we love the world that they exist in. And speaking of characters, just like the previous fan question, of all of your books, who's been your favorite character to write, and which character caused you the most grief?
Oh, I hate to say it, but I'm going to go back to my Aces Wild, my Fast series. Jez was the most fun to write. Jezebel, she had at the very beginning 2 very separate lives. She had the life that her family knew, where she was the good girl and she's doing what she was supposed to, and then she had the life where she would sneak out at night and street race.
Mhm.
And I had a lot of fun getting to know her and her personalities and how they worked together, but yet were very separate. And then how they merged when Boone comes into the picture and he
Right.
starts to tear down all those walls. She was also one who, because I wrote the large amount of books with her in it, not only in the six that she's the star in, but then also the follow-ups of her side characters. She's been in like a bunch of books. And I loved seeing how she grew, how she changed. Because when we meet her, she's only like 19. And so, she's still got some of that, people pleaser. I got to do what my daddy says. I'm going to follow the rules. I'm going to go break some of the rules because I want to, but I'm going to do what my older brothers say. But then she comes into her own also and stands up as the woman, becomes a wife and a mother, and just seeing that transformation that most young women go through at some point. It was fun. And I really love her. Like she's near and dear. For the more challenging, I have a couple. Harmony Ann from Promise Her a Threat. She was a challenge because she didn't do what I wanted her to do. But I had to kind of just work with her a little bit. And then I have another book called The Silent Squall. And that one was a little challenging to do also. The main character, Dipsy, it's a small town kind of romance where, big developer comes in and wants to change her town. And she was a little hard for me to kind of accept based on her past. She has trauma. She has, lost her husband recently. She's dealing with a lot of stuff. And I kept wanting her to get together with him a lot earlier, but she just kept putting on the brakes. So she was probably a little more challenging.
All right. That's fair. Now, since you do write in the romance genre, Maxine, but in different tropes from shifter romance, mafia romance, and more, how do you ensure that each of the characters, including the main characters and the side characters, feel authentic to the world that they're presented in? Because I think that's probably the biggest thing among many things authors struggle with when it comes to writing characters. They want them to feel as if these are real people that we, the reader, would meet in our everyday lives.
Yeah. I think it's just allowing them to explore all the emotions that they can. You've got some people in the world who are just like, yep, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And, I find that with some of my mafia characters, they're very like, okay, this is my life and I'm going to do this and I'm happy with this. But then you have these characters who get introduced to it. And then there's always this like, yes, no, I don't know. Like, and that fluctuation of the emotions, that is having that play out for readers is important. And having that for me as a writer, experiencing that, like, how would I react? I have some BDSM based novels. I have 4 of them. And the first 2, she came into it slowly and she was interested. She walked in. But then I have another one where the girl is literally like kind of dropped into it. Her husband at the time made her go to the club on his birthday. And she didn't even know what was happening. She didn't know what was going on. And she freaked out. And I think that's part of that, struggle is like when you're jumped into a new situation, how do you react? Do you panic, fight or flight, and do you go with the flow? And I think it's okay to allow your characters to have those panicky moments, to step back and be like, no, before they go, yeah, okay, maybe. So.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, as you mentioned earlier, Maxine, you write your books for yourself because you're very passionate about all of these characters and all of these stories and more. So I'm very curious, when in your career did you feel comfortable in yourself to let, friends and family know that you were embarking on this new journey of yours? And when you got around to publishing all of these stories, what was the reaction like from readers of the genre? What have the reviews been like? Have they been more positive, very critical, or a 50-50 split?
Well, starting with my family, most of my family and friends didn't know that I wrote as much as I did. Obviously, my husband and my son did because they were around and they saw me typing away on the computer. And I published on a dare from my husband.
Really?
Yes. Like I said, I never wanted to be published. That wasn't a goal. And I'll never forget the conversation. I had Oprah on TV and she was interviewing Stephanie Myers, and Stephanie Myers was like, "Oh, I wrote this book and now it's going to be a movie and blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "That is not how it works, bitch." And my husband was like, "Well, you have to let people read your books before, you can even comment." And so he kind of dared me to do it. And that's how I did it, was because I got dared into it. He supported me. Publishing and writing. He doesn't read them, but he definitely has supported my time to do it. My son is 100% behind me on this. I didn't tell my family for a long time. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my friends. It wasn't until I'd been published the first time I had been published for probably 4 or 5 months that I mentioned it. And then they all kind of got excited, and then they went and read the book and they're like, "Ooh." Because my first book was a little on the darker scale. Again, the first book I published was about the hero I needed. So she was a very badass female. She killed, she did things. And so they were kind of like, "Ooh, you wrote this? Like, no, this isn't the woman we know." But slowly they started to come around. My mom, before she passed, read a good chunk of my books. There were a few that she wouldn't touch. She wasn't really into the explicit stuff. So anything that had graphic scenes in it, she didn't want. I actually dedicated one of my books, Delilah Jane, to her because it was the cleanest one and it was the one she loved the most. But my friends and my family, they're supportive, but they don't necessarily go out and buy and read. So as for fans, like my tag says, I'm the most published author that you've never heard of. So I don't have a lot of reviews out there. I don't have a lot of readers yet. I'm slowly building more and more. But I've been at this since 2008. So
wow.
Yeah. So for the number of reviews and reads I have, for the number of books and the amount of time I've been at this, it doesn't really correlate. And for the most part, I would say it's very, my early reviews, they either absolutely loved the storyline or they absolutely hated my book because there were typos. Because when you're just starting out, the grammar and the marketing and the all that stuff is, you got to do it on your own until you got the money to pay for it. But over the years, I've gotten better, and the reviews seem to be a little bit better, more favorable. But I know my books aren't for everyone. And I always say, I have a romance for every person. But not every person is going to love all my books. So
Truth.
Yeah. And that makes it harder to market too, because I don't have a niche.
That is very true. And that's what we're going to be covering when we get to the marketing aspect of being an author. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit more about some of the reflective side of being an author, because these questions are also very important. So as like an icebreaker question, Maxine, how do you deal with probably two of the biggest things all authors experience: the dreaded writer's block and the very indomitable imposter syndrome?
Yes. Writer's block. It's actually funny. I have a block of wood on my desk. That's my writer's block. And I try not to worry about writer's block. I know that when the time comes that I'm done, I'm done. Because this has never been my goal, my end game. When the time comes that no more stories are coming to me, that's it. Okay. I can walk away and feel good about what I've accomplished. there are times where it dries out, where, I'll spend 6 months without writing anything. Usually during that time, when one of those happens, I have, books that are kind of marinating that are sitting on the back shelf, and I go to those and I work on those, rewrite, edit, do that type stuff. And then eventually a story pops up or a character comes and sits down with me. But yeah, I don't panic about writer's block. I know most authors, especially younger authors, freak out. I was just talking to a lady online the other day and she's panicking. I'm like, just relax. Like, it'll come. Don't worry. So like I said, I'm a little different than most authors. Now on the imposter syndrome, yeah, I have a hard time with that. I think because I've been at this so long and I have so many books, and like I said, I don't have a lot of readers for the amounts that the correlation isn't there. That one's a really tough one for me because, and I didn't actually think of myself as an author, and I didn't start really becoming comfortable with that title until I retired.
Okay.
So when I retired, I had to learn to change my wording. I wasn't just a teacher who wrote. Now I'm an author who's a retired teacher. And that's been a hard thing to wrap my head around. So.
Absolutely. And a lot of guests that I've had on the show, Maxine, I've had, similar experiences. They never really considered themselves authors or writers. They just consider themselves, people who just wrote stories. And that's sometimes a very difficult thing to like overcome because, it is a little, crazy to think of that we were able to create something so original, so unique, so us, that it's almost like, oh no, this can't be from us. There's no way we could have thought of something like this. And that kind of goes into, probably the big thing when it comes to the reflective side, and that is the notion of what does it mean to be an author in the digital age? Because it has changed over the last 20 years or so. I mean, if you look at the internet and social media, like 20 something years ago, it was still in its infancy. It wasn't as, prominent or prevalent as it was now. And as we fast forward, it's almost unheard of to be an author in the digital age and not have some form of a social media presence, some form of a website or a newsletter to have that engagement. And being an author in the digital age is not easy. I've had a lot of people on the show share their experiences. I've also shared my own experiences on it, that a lot of us, we are not born marketers. We do not know the algorithms. We do not know how to have engagement with our followers. And while we do get the, occasional review or shout out or a collaboration like that, unfortunately, social media has heightened imposter syndrome, especially when, unfortunately, as many people I've had on the show have said, in the Bookstagram community, the very, very, very small percent of people who do comment sometimes leave very, very negative or very overtly critical feedback and comments. And I'll be the one to say it. Critical feedback is important to us authors. We love it. We absolutely love it. But there's a fine line between feedback that's meant to help us grow and feedback meant to tear us down. And that feeds into our imposter syndrome and more. So I'm curious, Maxine, across all your books and your journey, what has still disciplined you to stay true to yourself and to showcase your voice as an author?
It's there's a few things. First of all, I try not to read my reviews. I know there are authors that just hang on their reviews and love to read them, but I just find that, like you said, a lot of times the reviews aren't helpful. They're not something that we can do. Like, I'm not out here writing my books to, please one person or please 10 people. If they like my book, great. But that's not why I wrote it. I didn't write it to get rich. So sometimes the reviews are kind of harsh. because it didn't meet the reader's expectations. Like it didn't get there. So I try not to read them too much. And that helps a lot, believe it or not. But also just keeping in mind who I am. And I don't know, maybe it's my age, or maybe it's my experience, or because I've been doing this for a while, or because I taught middle school, so I got used to a little bit of the abuse. I take it in stride. It is hard. It does wear on you if that's all you're taking in is the negative. So surrounding yourself with some positive people who believe in you. I have a great group of online community who, anytime I come across with like, or a negative comment or whatever, they're like, no, we don't do that. And that helps so much. You need your group, your support group to make it in this world.
Absolutely. And now let's probably talk about the biggest elephant in the room when it comes to publishing, and that is the rise of generative AI-driven content in the publishing world. Now, for those that have not seen the news as of recently, some major bookstores and booksellers are very open to the idea of selling and promoting AI-written books, which for us authors are very much against the idea. Now, when it comes to AI as itself, that is always going to be a hit or a miss, because AI is a tool. It can be used, properly and effectively. You can use AI to make posts, help make engagement and all that, but never for the creative process. Generative AI, which is from the standpoint we're talking on, is a big no-no. And that goes also into art as well, voices for narrators and more. Because while you can mass produce creativity, it's not going to have that human aspect. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to be the editor, not the writer. As one of my friends said, using AI to write a book for you is like asking an alcoholic to do the work for you, because 9 times out of 10, the language is not going to be correct. It's going to have so many mistakes. It's not going to make any sense. You're going to spend more time fixing it. It's just an utter complete mess. So, Maxine, I would like to hear your thoughts on AI in the publishing world, and just overall, how can we as authors, in a way, find balance with AI as a tool and not abuse it to kind of remove the creative aspect of what makes us writers, authors, and fellow creatives shine?
Well, I think that there is a time and a place for some AI support. And like you said, not in the creative process, not in the writing of the books. And I know there's a lot of authors who feel like no AI, like don't use it in your marketing, don't use it in, your editing, don't use, and they're very like adamant about that. But I think that in the day and age we live in, to dismiss AI 100% is really doing a disservice. You're not going to get what you need to shine without a little bit of support from AI, like in the editing process, using some of these editing tools that AI provides, to catch that missing period, to catch that, that should have been a comma kind of a thing. I think that's totally fine. And I think that's needed, because the world's not going to walk away from AI anytime soon.
Yes.
And with our literacy rate as a nation dropping, and our inability to become the best grammar people that we can be, I think it definitely can be helpful tools. Also, when it comes to marketing, if you put an author like me up with just a simple post next to somebody who's been able to create kind of a video of, their book, which one is going to get the attention of the readers? Obviously not my little post. The one who's got the cool video is where people are noticing. And So I know, again, I know a lot of authors are like against using it and go hire somebody and go do that. But even if you hire somebody, 90% of the time they're using something based with AI. So I definitely feel it's a fine line um, between accepting AI and using it for the right purposes and the right reasons. But I don't think we can just completely dismiss it at this point. Um,
Yeah.
it's a good support system.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I don't know if you already said this before, Maxine, but people say like, oh, we don't want to use like AI, those who are very hardcore against the use of AI. Grammar check is AI.
That's AI.
Grammarly
Yeah.
is AI. Spell check is AI. And we use that every day.
All
So
the
we
time.
can't say that we're totally against the use of AI when we use probably the most common feature in our day-to-day lives.
Right. Yeah. And you can't just, you know, any author, any writer, whether they're an author or, any kind of writer, even a student, you can't tell me that they're not at least using spell check. I mean, you can't write in any sort of the documents without something being flagged. So, I think it's just, again, using it appropriately so it doesn't diminish or change the storyline. And when, as an author, even as a reader, I can instantly tell when something has either been written to formula or written by AI to formula.
Mm-hmm.
All those, kind of storylines that come out of the AI world, they all fit the stereotypical formula. And it's very easy to tell, when an author comes in with a book, it doesn't feel like that formula, And I think that's where maybe that's where the books are headed now, that very clear break. And that's why I went, indie instead of traditional. It's because I didn't want to write to formula.
Right. Very true. And that kind of goes now perfectly into the introduction of the business side of being an author. Now, as another icebreaker for these set of questions, Maxine, when you began publishing your books as an indie author, what really surprised you initially about the marketing side of being an indie author? And looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
Oh yeah. Again, I started in 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, and indie, we didn't have all the indie options. It was, pretty much, either traditional or you could buy into the people who were doing it for you, kind of a thing, and had I'd known, I probably would have waited a few years. I did try and get in with the agents but I knew my books weren't going to fall to formula. I knew that I would not, I write what comes into my head and it doesn't always fall into a specific trope. So I knew I was going to have a hard time with the traditional. And because of that, that means that more fell in my lap and, marketing and all that. I did not know I was going to have to do all that, when I started.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I'd have to talk about my book, but I didn't realize I was going to have to do it all 100%. Because again, yes, there were a ton of indie authors out there at the time, but we weren't really communicating like we are now. And I think that is a huge help that, people coming into the industry now have all of us who have been around, that they can be like, okay, what do I have to do? Like, where do I go? What do I look out for? What are the pitfalls? And I think that's very helpful because those of us who, started publishing early on didn't have that. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I think probably something that you mentioned earlier in the interview, Maxine, is this notion of, showcasing who we are as authors and how you mentioned before, like you don't write for formula. You don't write for the market. You write for yourself. And I think as authors, that's kind of like a very difficult balancing act of the two. our individuality as authors, but also being mindful of the genre they're writing in and the expectations readers have. Now, since you write in the romance genre, which has numerous subplots from romance fantasy, historical romance, mafia romance, shifter romance, and many, many more, readers in those subgenres have expectations. So for you, Maxine, for each of your books, which touches on a specific aspect of the romance genre, how do you showcase your individuality throughout all of your books, but also stay mindful to the genre that you're writing in? Because you don't want to write a book that's already been written by another author, but you don't want to make something that's so new that's going to confuse people.
Yeah. When I'm writing a story, I hate to say this is going to sound awful, but I don't actually think about that.
Oh, okay.
I literally I have characters who walk into my head, they sit down, they start yapping at me until I start typing out their story. And whatever happens, it happens. And I try very hard not to read like the trope or the genre that I'm writing in. So like I don't mind writing or reading romances while I'm writing, but like I'm writing more of a small town MC kind of thing right now. I am not reading that. I am reading billionaire romances or some other trope. Because I don't want to steal, borrow, have it influence the story. And I don't know. I just I've been hopefully fortunate enough that my books will follow a certain expectation. But I also sometimes they don't. I wrote a book called The Saint, and I've heard from The Saint is a very, very volatile book in that you either absolutely love it or you hate it, because it doesn't necessarily follow the generalized expectation. The hero doesn't come out as the good guy, but he's not the morally gray bad guy either. He screws up, and she gets hurt, and she gets hurt again, and she gets hurt again. So, again, I understand that in romance there is the, gotta have, readers love a happy ending.
Yes.
If you don't give them that happy ending, it's hard. So I always try to give a happy ending. I always want the boy to get the girl and the girl to get the boy, and for them to live happily ever after. But past that, whatever happens, happens. And I blame it on the characters. It's their story. I'm just writing it down.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, this is another fun question. I don't ask authors this a lot, but I'm very curious. When you're not writing and just reading on the side, who would you say are some of your favorite authors or books that you like to read that may or may not have a subtle influence on your writing for a future book or a future idea?
This is again where I'm not going to be your typical reader writer. I don't have a favorite author. I have books that I have loved.
Okay.
I have author friends who I support and I love their work. And I'll read, most of their stuff. But again, I feel like I read their books a little differently than I read, whatever I'm downloading on Kindle. So there haven't been too many books that I've read that I've been like, I like that idea. That might come out somewhere. There was a book, and I don't even remember the title or the author, and I'm so sorry because it's so rude of me not to. But I read very fast. So I can be done with a book and moved on to 3 books before I'm still processing what I read before. But there was something in there that I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea. I never thought of that. But I haven't put it necessarily in a book. And so I don't know. I'm not your typical reader writer. I read a lot of indies. I will tell you that. I haven't picked up a traditional book in years. I find that a lot of the traditional books just lack something, and I don't like them. I don't like a book where I can predict what's going to happen next.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now this goes into my favorite set of questions before we get to the final question, and that is, of course, the rapid fire fan question round. So these set of questions I've gathered from my fans over the years and compiled them into a list. Now we're going to start off with the very first one, and this first fan question is this: which you prefer in stories, themes or tropes?
Tropes.
All right. Next question. Of the tropes, which one is the most overused and which one is the most underutilized?
That's hard because in the romance, there are so many that are overused, I don't think I can answer that one. I mean, the overused one, you've got a million MCs, you've got a million billionaires, you got a million small towns, and
enemies to lovers,
fake dating, all of those just, they're so almost overused. I haven't found one that I would say is underused yet, although I would love to, because that would be my kind of thing.
Okay. I think if I had to throw my hat in the ring for underused, I would say either found family, maybe friends to enemies, because you don't really see that as much.
Oh, yeah, I have not seen a friends to enemies.
Yes. Good. Mafia romance is definitely for overused, I definitely would think. And the next rapid fire fan question is this: of the 5 physical senses, which sense is the most difficult to showcase in storytelling?
Smell. I think
again, for smell. Everyone says smell. That's a really good one.
Because it's hard to describe a specific scent unless you know like the terminology to use. It's really hard to describe something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, next one. This is a question I haven't used in a long time. What, in your opinion, makes the atmosphere or setting of a story truly gripping?
Realism. Not necessarily can I go stand on that street corner where they were talking about, but just believing that it's out there. I love a story that feels real. Like, I don't need the name of the city. I don't need the name of the town. I don't need the location specifically on a map so I can go stand on it too. But just knowing that it could be any place that I could go stand on that corner and see that. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, here's one that a lot of authors like to answer, and it has thrown them a bit of a curveball. So here's a scenario. You've been offered $1 million to adapt any one of your books into one of the following mediums. Medium number 1, a movie deal that is a trilogy with the actors and actresses of your choice. Number 2, a series deal, let's say 6 seasons, with, again, your favorite actors and actresses from TV or film playing in any series of books that you have. Or number 3, one of your books is given the audiobook treatment with some of the finest Broadway actors, theater actors in the industry, and we'll even expand to the UK and more to voice the characters in your books or book. Which medium or choice do you choose and why?
The movies. I would love to see my Fast series a part of the Fast and the Furious family and saga.
Ooh, that'd be good.
I think that because I could imagine it, I could see the race scenes, I could hear the dialogue, I could see all of it in my head, the most clear of any of the books I've read. And I would absolutely go that route because I feel like that would be the best for that series, the movie route. Definitely.
Nice. And the final fan question is this. For authors, which you think is the most difficult to accept? Knowing when to stop writing or editing, or knowing when to say the story is finished? Now, some people may say that these are the same thing, but I'm going to explain why that for me, these are two different ones. For editing or to stop writing, that could also be in the sense of, the story is not going anywhere, that you're trying to write as much as you can, but story's not going anywhere. There's no ending inside that's feasible, so you have to stop. For knowing when to say a story is finished is when you realize the book is probably the perfect it can be. I can't edit anymore. As much as I want to add more stuff, I can't, because it is perfect. It is finished. The idea is completed.
For me or for authors in general?
Let's say for you in general.
Okay. For me, it's definitely the editing process because I can go back in any given book and find more to fix. And I, like, if I didn't just stop and be like, okay, that's it, I'm done, I cannot do anymore, I got to get this out there. That's the hardest part. I know when my story is finished in writing. Like, I know when I hate putting the end at the end because it's never the end, but I know in my head when it's the end, at least for that book or that storyline or that whatever. Now, there may be another book that comes out later on because the characters come back to me, but definitely that editing piece, God, that can go on for years and years and years if I let it. So.
Well said, Maxine. And now finally we arrive at the final question of this incredible author interview, Maxine. With everything we talked about and more, from your background to the books you've written, some of your favorite moments and more, at the end of the day, what do you want people, or what do you hope people will take away from all of your books and your style of writing as an author?
I hope people are intrigued enough to go at least check out one of them. Because I am, an indie author, I know I'm not getting the amount of, recognition or being seen or out there or whatever. But also just know that I wrote that book because it had to be written. And they may not like it, but just understand that it had to get out there. And I did my best to get it out there.
Well said, Maxine. Well said. And bonus fan question. I almost forgot to say this for your interview. Do you have a pearl of wisdom you would like to instill and share with the next generation of writers and authors listening or watching this interview right now?
Maybe I have a couple. The first is to write the book. Stop getting hung up on all the things, I hear new authors all the time being like, but I got to stop and redo this. I got to stop and redo that. I don't like this. I don't like that. Well, just write the damn book. Then you can go fix it, So just write, just do it. And also, it's your book. Don't let anybody else tell you how it has to be. I hear a lot and I worry a lot about the younger authors who are so worked up on, well, how do you think it should be? What do you think should come next? How should this work? Don't worry about it. Write your book. It's yours. You do with it what you want. It's your characters. How are they going to do it? Don't worry about following that formula, or don't write for the reader, write for yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
A perfect way to end this incredible author interview here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for our first ever author interview for the month of July here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to Maxine for coming back on the show for her second appearance, and be on the lookout for her third appearance in part 2 of the Authors Roundtable coming out later this month. Now, Maxine, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you on social media if they want to stay up to date with all new updates? And where can people buy all of your books?
All my books are available on Kindle, KU, Amazon. A good chunk of them are on Audible. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And I'm on a lot of the socials, most of the socials: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and under Maxine Keith with the little cat icon. So come check me out.
I will link all that down below in the description of this video, ladies and gentlemen. And if you would like to see Maxine make her first appearance on the channel, I will also tag the Authors Roundtable Part 1, which was an absolute blast. I'm going to be doing those more so this year and have it be a Wandering Scribe tradition. So if you have any further questions you would like to ask Maxine, make sure to comment down below in the description of this video, or message her at her socials. And if you'd like to see Maxine back on the show in possibly an episode of the Writers Hub series, or another Authors Roundtable for a particular theme or genre, maybe an all romance authors roundtable, if you would like to see that, you know what you have to do. Like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Until then, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Happy Thursday, everybody, and we'll see you all tomorrow for the next set of episodes. Take care and have a wonderful day.